Alrighty, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar with very special guest Kirk, who we shall find on screen on a second. So today we're going to be looking at editing photos with Mastin Labs Fuji Color Original, which has just been launched. I'm right. Whoops! Oh, I just nearly muted Kirk there. So Fuji Color Original has just been launched very recently, and then also complementing the Everyday Original pack that was launched before. So let's see if we've got Kirk around. Hey, Kirk, you with us?
I'm right here. How's
Nice
it going?
one. Good. Very well, thanks. Very well.
Good.
So we're going to go through, or I'm going to go through some housekeeping stuff, and then we're going to bring you back, Kirk, and hand over to you pretty much. Alrighty. So as usual, we have around 60 minutes to go today. We'll probably use all of that depending how keen Kirk is on editing tons of pictures. As usual, we are recording this webinar, so don't worry if you miss anything. I'll be able to, or you'll be able to rather, watch it the day after and so on. And you'll get an email where that automatically pops up showing you that the recording is available. Now, lots of you have found the chat already, so obviously you know how to use and enjoy that. Remember, the chat is public, so everything you say can be seen by everyone else. So I'm sure I don't have to tell you to be nice to each other. If you would like to ask a question to myself or Kirk, I'll keep an eye on the questions and moderate them for Kirk himself. Then please put that in the Q&A section, because then that will come straight through to me. If it's in the chat, it can often get lost, so just go straight to the Q&A section, and then that way I'll be able to see it a bit better than rather it getting lost in the chat. Now, if you don't want to chat or ask questions, you can hide all of that, and that will just minimize that panel and give you a bit more space on screen as well. So I think without further ado, let us begin. So Kirk, it's just you and me on screen right now. So first of all, I think most people know who you are, but we should probably just introduce you, and you can explain a little bit about what is Mastin Labs and how it began in the brief 45-second intro.
Yes. So yeah, I'm Kirk Mastin. I'm here in Seattle. This is the home of Mastin Labs. My background is in photography, obviously. That's what I've done basically my whole life. And started out in photojournalism, did some stock photography, and then I was pretty well known in the States for wedding photography, and in particular for shooting film and digital together, with coining the term hybrid photography.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and basically that evolved into Mastin Labs. I didn't have a tool that really let me match my film to my digital in the way that I shot film, which is usually overexposed over box speed. There's a little technical details. Maybe it's not interesting, but it is very critical to me to get that nice clean film look. And so using a Fuji Frontier scanner and lots of test shoots over years and years, and a really good dedicated team of people, we've brought 6 different style packs, preset packs out, and then 2 of them are style packs with many more to come for Capture One.
Cool. Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's I'm going to get your screen up sharing. So now we should be able to see your screen. Yep, we can. So now you are free to kind of give us the lowdown on Fuji Color Original and basically show us the best way to execute and use them, I think, because they're a little bit different to a traditional style, I would say, which is just like applying one hit. I don't know if modular is the right term, but yeah, it's a little bit different. So I think if you can just give everyone the best practice on how to use them, that's going to be great.
Yes, absolutely. So in a nutshell, we are emulating real film. And that means emulating the lighting dynamics of every film, how it reacts to exposure, especially overexposure. Film has literally almost no limit to overexposure. It does not like underexposure.
Okay.
With RAW files, you can kind of go in either direction, which is really great. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. You can get a film look with a digital file. And this pack that we just released, Fuji Color Original, is our most popular one of all time.
Really?
By a factor of 10.
Okay.
At least. So I don't know if a lot of our viewers are coming, to hear from like Europe. I was actually talking to David earlier about this, that I'm not sure that the light and airy style is really popular there yet, but it has taken over Southern California and the wedding photography market and portrait market here in the States, and it's been dominant for years. And this is the pack if you want that look.
Okay.
So, and then Fuji 400H is the film that all of our top film wedding photographers use in the United States. And that's why it's been so popular. Okay. So if you like a light pastel, sophisticated look, that's where Fuji Color Original comes in. This is not the ideal pack for a dark and moody look.
Okay.
I'd say like Portrait Pushed is our best pack for that look, and that will be coming to Capture One shortly.
So only happy and joyful colors then for these packs.
Yes. I would not be using Fuji Color Original for pictures from Iceland, for example.
Got it. Got it.
If you want that look. But anyway, okay, so I've got I'm going to just do a real quick breakdown of the 4 different like kind of face looks within the pack.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go into how to edit with all of Mastin Labs. Like we've got a very, very simple process. It's usually about 3 clicks.
Okay.
And it is modular, as I'll show you. And then I'll just go through some different edits. And if anyone has any questions about anything or wants me to back up or do anything else, just let me know.
Okay.
I'm happy to like walk through everything for you.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Fuji 400H is the king of the light and airy looks, both in film and digital. Its main characteristics are, I'll just roll over here so you can see it, as you can see, the picture changed a lot. The main characteristics of Fuji 400H are very, very cool blues and greens.
Okay.
So you'll notice the green went very, very cool. Let me increase the exposure here just a little bit. So about like that is how someone would shoot Fuji 400H.
Okay.
The actual film. They would shoot it, and then in scanning, they would bring up the exposure. And this is the light and airy look. This is the definition of it. If I go to a portrait, like this portrait here by David Heydrich, awesome photographer, and I apply it, you'll see that her skin tones, she becomes more three-dimensional, I guess. Like there's definitely a lot of micro contrast in the image, which is really a huge part of film. But at the same time, it doesn't look crunchy or overdone, and you get really nice creamy skin tones, those beautiful like blue-green blues and greens in the background, and just a nice sophisticated look. So that is like Fuji 400H in a nutshell.
And what's the sort of blue subtitle? Is that just to give you a hint that it's cooler tones, or is that something more technical that I've missed?
Great question, David. Great question. Okay, so this is the only fake thing that we've ever made because it doesn't actually track to a real film. Okay. I want to just put that out there. So Pro 400H Blue is a variation I made of 400H. It gives you these aged greens, these cool greens, in less than ideal lighting, and in less than ideal lighting conditions where the greens may appear like overly vibrant. Like I don't know if you have Mountain Dew wherever you're watching from. It's a soda that we drink here, and it's like super bright green. Yeah, it makes that super bright green. It tames it and brings it down. So if I apply it to this photo that has just normal 400H on it, just watch the greens for a second.
Okay.
You see how it changed just a little bit? So
Yep.
I'll roll off of it again.
Yep.
So it just kind of knocks the greens down without touching any of the other colors. This photo doesn't necessarily need it, but if I had a photo, let me show you something where it might be needed. Okay, so we've got this photo of these people. See if I can show it there. There we go. If I just do neutral and just increase the exposure, so there's like a real basic Fuji 400H edit. This is just classic.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to knock down this green just a little bit more, because this is towards midday,
yeah,
you can see the light direction. Like there's a little bit of shadow in front of her, but the light's pretty hot. I would just go to Fuji 400H blue, and I'm just going to roll over it a few times, and you'll see the greens get knocked down without the skin tones or anything else changing.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's Fuji 400H blue. The next one on the list is Fuji Pro 160 NS. If you shoot film, it's an amazing film, completely underrated. I love it. It has almost no grain, very vibrant magentas and cyans. It's a little more colorful than the pastel look of 400H, but it's still really nice and soft. So this is 160 NS. So you see the colors kind of get turned back on again. It would be more ideal for an image like this.
Okay.
So I'll just go to 160 NS. So I'm just going to roll over it a few times. You can see that the contrast drops just a little bit. The skin tones are very creamy. There's not a ton of magenta in this photo, but if there was, you would see a bit of a change in that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a really nice all-around look. It's kind of the middle ground of everything in the pack. Let me zoom in just a little bit so it's easier to see at home. There we go. So the last film on the list is Fuji Color 800Z.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this film is no longer made. It was very, very hard to find enough of this film stock stored in the right conditions to actually make this emulation. So this was added.
Really?
Yeah, it was added like a couple years after this pack came out.
Okay.
So it was like kind of a hobby project, was to find enough of this film to do it. And I did it because of this photographer named Elizabeth Messina, who's a fantastic. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, yep.
Fantastic wedding photographer. Great. And 800, she was like a hero of mine. See what she shot for most of her early career. And she shot it very overexposed. And that would introduce this really super light, ethereal kind of pink look. So that is where 800Z is different than the other ones. 800Z has a lot of pink in it. I'll show you what I mean. So if you go to 800Z, you see it changed a lot. And this film does really well if you crank it up just a little bit higher. I'm going to drop the white balance just a tiny bit. But you can see it's got kind of a, I don't know, peach, I guess is the color I would use.
Yeah.
Or the word I would use to describe it. You might be able to see it a little better on a photo where you have more context. But so this is 400H right now, and if I go to 800Z, you'll see you get that kind of peachy overtones, like in the upper midtones and highlights. So yeah. Anyway, it's a great film too. It's the most vibrant of the 4 looks inside of Fuji Color Original. So I hope that is like clarifying as to where this pack is headed, what it's good for.
Yeah, and
to those that are
for
watching.
quite different films and quite different uses as well, really. So interesting.
Yeah, so if I was to go through these really quick, and then before I move on, it would be, here's raw. Let me get rid of this pinned image so you can see it just by itself. There we go.
Cool.
Okay. So yeah, it might be easier to see. So here's 400H. Bam. Looks really good. One click. Mm-hmm. Here's blue. 400H blue. So we've knocked the greens down. Here is 160 NS. So you can see the color is coming back, but it's still very mellow, low contrast. And then 800Z and you can see in the shadow or in the highlights, you have that pink peachy color from overexposure.
Nice.
Which is that's the only way I would recommend shooting 800Z, if you can actually find any somewhere.
Right. How did you find yours?
I found some at a camera store where they had it in a freezer in the back, and they'd closed down, and they just happened to have like 4 rolls. And then I got a few more rolls from another guy in Canada.
Okay.
And then I got a few more rolls from Japan, and I had enough to do some testing.
Wow.
And each roll, like even the 35 millimeter roll, was $50, and the 120 rolls I bought were about $130 each.
Okay.
It's really hard to find. So, anyway,
an expensive pack.
Anyway,
yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's part of my mission is to save film looks from disappearing.
Sure.
So that was kind of the reason I did it, and then I love the Mastin Labs community. So when it was finally done, I was like, I'm just going to give it to those who already own this pack. I just put it in there as a bonus. So I do that every once in a while. Try to add on to things that we already have. Okay, so I'm going to get into how to do an edit with this pack, or in particular, a light and airy edit for those that are into that or want to learn.
Okay.
So as you said before, it's like what we have is a modular system. I want to make it really easy for you to get a successful edit. I believe that you shouldn't have to choose between a complicated edit and a beautiful image. So all of our presets work the same way. You start with a film base. So here it's like labeled 1, 1 and then film. That's where you would apply. Oh, I should change this to style. So sorry. But just preset style.
Same.
Yeah. You would apply that. You would apply lens correction, which is down here if you want. I'll go into like what that is. It's not that important. It's more of an aesthetic choice. But then you would do any kind of adjustments to exposure, usually increasing it, and then you would adjust white balance and tint. White balance, tint, and exposure are things that no preset can know. I want to put that out there. So if you're looking for a one-hit wonder of a preset, they don't exist unless they're terrible. Unless they're so heavy-handed that it doesn't matter what your exposure was or what your white balance or tint was. Exactly. So no camera in the world.
There is no magic bullet, eh?
Does not exist. Everyone wants this one-click solution. Does not exist unless you're willing to put garbage on your photo. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So those are the only things you have to do. And then you can see there's a few optional things. You can put a tone profile on or grain. Come Fuji Frontier scanner. And it's different ways to deal with difficult lighting situations. So let me find something where I can demonstrate that real quick. Let's see. We don't have any difficult lighting situations in here. I should have thrown one in. Well, I'll just go to this photo. So the basic edit, just like bam, 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 would be you apply the preset. So that's step 1. The lens correction thing, that's a personal preference, but that just takes away the vignetting and distortion. I use this in particular with a light and airy edit because you don't want vignetting when you're going for that look. That's just something I discovered. You don't have to do it. You do whatever you want when you edit, but that's just a little extra step I do to give it that magazine look. If you were to like look for a magazine cover. So lens correction on, and then I'm going to bump up the exposure just a tiny bit, bring up the midtones. The white balance looks pretty good. I could mess with it just to mess with it, but their skin tones look really nice. I may cool it down just a tiny bit. So I cooled it down just a tiny bit. And then, you know how I mentioned previously the tone profile?
Yes.
So this is a great example. If this was on film and I was scanning it on my Frontier, I would hit a key called Highlight Soft. And what that does is that the scanner, the film scanner, would look for parts of the image in the highlights where it can retain more information and put that back into the photo. So like, it's kind of like HDR light. I do not like HDR at all personally, but there is a form of HDR in the scanner that I emulated inside of Capture One. So with Highlight Soft, if I roll over it, it's very subtle. I don't even know if you can even see it, David, or not. But if I roll back and forth, you'll see that
ever so slightly. Yeah,
ever so slightly. Yes. And what that does is it brings everything back under blown out level. Like 0, if there's any information. There's also Shadow Soft, which does the same thing in the shadow areas, like in his suit. If you did Shadow Soft, you would bring out a little bit of information in the shadows. So we have all hard, all soft, highlight hard, highlight soft, shadow hard, and shadow soft. You can make the shadows or the highlights harder or softer. This is the direct translation from Japanese on the scanner. So I just kept it because I thought it was kind of cool sounding. But that's where those names come from. And if you want, so the particular look that people love, at least here in the United States, using this pack is all soft. Mm-hmm. So I would hit all soft, and that brought out just a little more detail in this suit. Hardly anything. I'll turn off the other ones so you can see the difference. So this is, let me get back to the, okay, here's 400H neutral, and then all soft. It's so slight.
Yeah.
But it's really, really nice.
Yeah, super nice.
It's just a little tweak, and that's what I feel defines the look of film. It's very hard to get a look like film because the more that you mess with an image, the more it immediately looks digital if you're looking for a film look. So the corrections and things within our packs are very slight. It's very, very hard to make milk into ice cream, and it's very easy to make ice cream into milk.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Yes.
Or so separate out red and blue from a tin of purple paint.
Exactly. It's very, very easy to make this image look super digital quickly. So the adjustments are very, very carefully made or carefully created, and we want to keep you on the right path to getting that film look. So the last step would be to add grain if you want. So this is 35 millimeter grain, and this is medium format grain, which you can probably can't even see. And so I took 2 grain scans from each film, averaged them out a little bit, and then made a 35 millimeter simulation and a medium format simulation for the grain size at that film size.
Nice.
For techie people out there wondering what the difference is. And
maybe you can zoom to 100%, so you might be able to see the grain a bit better than perhaps. Yeah.
Wait, this is 100%.
Yeah.
I'll do 200%.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. There we go.
So, okay. There's 35 millimeter grain. Oh yeah, you can see it way easier. And then here is medium format grain at 200%. I have to stop and say I love Capture One grain. It is so good.
Good.
You guys have, it is like something I've wanted from the other company that shall not be named, that starts with an A, for 10 years. For at least 10 years, I've wanted more control over grain and over the shape and size and distribution and randomness of grain. And you guys have nailed it. And it's one of my favorite things about porting everything over to Capture One is the grain. And your rendering engine is fantastic. I would say that the color detail in the shadows to the midtones, like that range in particular, is wonderful. Like I've reprocessed photos in Capture One that I'd had in Lightroom, and I'm getting, I feel, a better, richer image every time. So
that's good to hear.
That's my little plug.
Little Capture One plug. Yeah. Well, that's what we like to think, but it's also nice to hear that from obviously autonomous people, because you've invested a lot of time in making presets for Lightroom, and of course making styles for Capture One. It's not like just a copy paste. It took you
oh God, no,
at least a year plus to do this. So it's not just a simple exercise for sure.
It is not a simple exercise. No, anyone. So the truth is, anyone can make a style or a preset. Anyone could just go home and make you could go home and make 300 of them tonight if you wanted. But getting them to actually track to a dynamic model of film, all the way down to how it handles exposure, underexposure, micro contrast, grain size, all the little tiny nuances, that is really hard. And it's so important to me that we maintain accuracy to film. Even if people don't shoot that much film anymore, it's important to me because those are the looks that I love, and I don't want them to disappear. So yeah, I'll do another quick edit here for you. I really love how Fuji Original looks on darker skin. Sometimes people ask what pack is best for my clientele. And I say it tracks to where the film was made originally. Kodak films in general look fantastic for Caucasian skin tones because they have a lot of orange and yellow in the film itself, in the look itself. Fuji, on the other hand, made in Japan, really focused on cyan and red tones in the film itself. And those tones work super, super well for darker skin. So I recommend that if you're shooting people of color, any kind of darker skin tones, Fuji is the best way to go. The everyday pack that we also made, Ektar, happens to work equally well, in my opinion, on both dark and light skin. But if you are looking for versatility with darker skin, this pack is amazing. It's just one click. It looks super nice. I mean, that's like a one-click edit. And his skin tones are just perfect. Now, if I was a person of color, I would actually have a much more heightened sense of how skin should look. Like I would be able to look at his skin on the screen and go, oh wow, that's really nailing it. That looks perfect. So I can't, I can't claim to be an absolute expert in it, but I can say that photographers that are fans of Mastin Labs or in our community that do shoot a lot of people of color, they've also have been like, yes, Fuji is the way to go. It is just super. So anyway, I just want to put that out there. Film and styles are kind of like makeup. So not that I go shopping for makeup, but from what I understand of it is that you're trying to match your skin's undertones. And if you build up too much of one color, it looks kind of weird.
Yeah, for sure.
So the cyans and reds in Fuji play really nicely with the undertones in darker skin. So we get asked all the time about that. So, what should I use for my clients? And that's my best answer. And it really is
skin tone
cool.
is always that thing that's impossible to, well, not impossible, but it's always the challenge to get right, because you want to color grade and you want to have an effect, but you don't want anyone to look like they've been on the sunbed for 3 weeks or whatever. So the fact that you can, do that one-click edit and it looks great out of box is fantastic.
Yes, and it's just like a match made in heaven. Like the rendering engine, the depth, just the micro contrast and the depth in Capture One, I love. As you could just see, I edited this image without even thinking about it in 2 seconds. It just handles everything nicely.
Definitely.
So I don't know, for this image, for example, I would do 400H. Increase the exposures a tiny bit. It can handle it. It's not going to blow out. Increase the temperature a tiny bit. And I'm going to knock down these highlights up here and on their faces just using Highlight Soft. And that's it. So this is the classic Southern California wedding photography look. So I mean, this is like, yeah, super, super popular here. And if you're not even shooting, wedding photography, or if you're shooting fashion or editorial, it's also a really good pack. So there's Fuji. There's the neutral. This needs to be warmed up considerably. Not hard to do. But it holds a really nice look even across different kinds of imagery like this. You could keep this kind of contrasty like this if you want, or again, you could do something like all soft and kind of mellow it out a little bit. But that plus a little bit of grain, and it just looks, there we go. It just looks fantastic. It looks fantastic.
We should point out actually, Kirk, because we spoke, I can't remember if I mentioned it, but we spoke briefly about, the process of applying the presets. But the workspace you're in is actually a custom workspace that you also get with the style pack, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we worked really hard to make all of our styles work easily and quickly, just a few clicks. So it was really important to us to mirror that in the workspace. So we only have the tools in the workspace that you need to edit with. And we found that this was a great way to get people into Capture One, where they could approach it at the level that they're at right now and then grow. So they could come in, use this workspace. It's not intimidating. You can't get lost. You can learn it, and then you can go up and add stuff to it. And there's just so much cool stuff. I mean, in Capture One, it's just fantastic. So you can tailor it to what you want as a photographer, but we wanted to start you out with a really successful foundation.
Cool.
So that's a really good point. Yeah.
Can I throw a few questions at you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a couple of people, just to clarify, were asking, can I use this on my, Nikon camera, or is this only for Fujifilm cameras, etc.? So just to specify, it's a simulation of the film, and you're camera agnostic, I guess, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So whether you're Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Sony, Panasonic, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. No.
And what about the behavior between different camera models? I guess you're going to see some subtle differences, or what's your experience when you were building these between Nikons, Canons, and so
on? I found that for the most part, it tracks pretty evenly across all cameras. Again, this comes to the rendering engine inside of Capture One. But I haven't run across anything that was challenging. There may be some slight variations in the starting global tint across camera models. So, for example, right now, like the Fuji X-T3, for example, it's very green when you go to use it in any program,
right?
Without any style or anything. Just the engineers just set that thing really green for some reason, and people don't like it.
Right.
Across the world, but it's an easy fix. You just go to the tint slider and go, correct that out by just going towards magenta, and it's not hard to do. It's really the only difference is moving your hand a couple centimeters more on the tint slider, and you'll get all perfect.
Excellent.
But yeah.
Nikolai was asking, and I'm going to rephrase his question slightly. So he was saying, should you apply these before, say, going to retouch on the PSD file? Have you tried applying these on like TIFF files and PSD files, or is it really not the same effect?
Okay, that's a great question. That is a super good question. I wish more people asked those kinds of questions. So. That's very practical. So my recommendation is that you do all of your editing, like as far as the base look, you want to get that all figured out in a raw format. You're going to get the most out of it that way. So what I would do, like for this photo, for example, I edit it in Capture One. When I'm happy with the colors and the tones and all of that, and I want to do maybe some work on the skin, or maybe remove an object in the background or whatever, and I need to take it out of there and go somewhere else with it, I would do this initial look, get that perfect, then take it out, do any kind of skin touch-up or whatever, and then bring it back in and put grain on it and then export it.
Right.
Grain is the only thing that's got to go on the other. If you think of it like a sandwich, grain is the other piece of bread. So the top piece of bread is the film look. The middle part is whatever kind of retouching you need to do, and then you bring it back in for grain at the end, and that's the bottom of the sandwich. If you try to do, a lot of people already know this, but if you try to like clone or smooth things out on an image that already has grain on it, the grain just gets all messed up. So grain has to go on at the very end.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my advice.
And I guess your client base is mostly, or the majority, wedding portrait, who don't necessarily do a ton of high definition retouching on 600 pictures or whatever. I guess it might happen on some of the hero stuff, but like the image that we can see on screen now, that's not going to go into Photoshop for huge rounds of retouching, for example.
No, not at all. Not at all. Especially if you are editing in a light and airy style. A little cool trick that transfers over from film is that when you're pushing the exposure up like this in the midtones, and you're able to retain it all because it's based on film, just the fact that you're making it light and airy removes a lot of blemishes in and of itself.
Right.
So like if this image was super dark, I'm just going to darken it up a lot. I would never deliver it this way, but you can already start seeing things in her skin down here at the bottom. But if it's back up to where I would deliver it, you hardly notice any of that stuff. You can kind of still see it, but
it's
that
not
was
obvious. Yeah.
No. And this style of overexposure came from the wedding photography industry, partially for this reason. So like back in the 80s and 90s, this was like having Photoshop in a film canister.
Right.
Because there was no retouching for the average person.
No, unless you wanted to start painting on sheet film and so on, which,
Exactly. Yeah. So the little side note as to where this style even came from and why.
Interesting. A couple of people asked about using the styles with layers. Now, I guess my response is that the style is designed to be modular, so you can't sort of incorporate the film, the white balance, the tone into a single layer. So therefore, I guess it doesn't make sense to have it as a layer style, or am I wrong there, for example?
Yeah, they were never really intended to be used as layers. This is coming from originally from a Lightroom environment where that's not even possible.
Yeah.
But I am interested in learning more about that and seeing if that's something we can do in the future.
Cool. Nice.
So yeah.
Let's see. What does Derek said? Can you do an indoor low-key image with Fuji Pack or portrait if you have one?
I have this one.
Yeah. That's a good one.
If he's looking for like shot inside with flash at a table at a reception, I'll just tell you right now that neither the film nor the style of Fuji 400H is really the right one. This film was made for, most of the time for natural light outdoors.
Okay.
Yeah. But we have other packs that are made for that other kind of situation. Now, this image, it'll work pretty well because she's in a very neutral environment. There's no tungsten light in here that I can see or fluorescent. And so if you apply it, this is going to need, just some basic corrections. It should be pretty clean and nice. So the image is super cool. Let me just warm it up. But yeah, it looks great.
So what's the difference between the white balance presets you have in the style and just sort of manually adjusting it? Is there any time when you should one over the other?
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. I've just gotten so used to doing it my way, which is different than some people, that I forget about that. So there is a white balance section. And this was to help people who are just really beginning with understanding color casts and color balances. I have the curse of knowledge of, like, I've been doing color correction and stuff for 10 years, so I can see immediately when there's a color cast. For some people, it's hard to even get a good starting point. So the white balance settings over here give you a starting point, and they're labeled according to, like, roughly when you would want to use them. So for example, like this image, it's like late in the day, the auto white balance on the camera made it too cool. If you go to like cloudy, let me see here, or maybe open shade, just like that, you're getting like an appropriate starting white balance. I haven't put a style on here yet, but it's just to help you kind of get in the ballpark.
And then of course there's nothing wrong with tweaking it by eye, just using the white balance tool after that.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. No, that these white balance settings were kind of a late addition to what we do. And that was in response to beginners who needed that extra help.
Okay. So then it's a good sort of start point. So this is in shade or whatever, or pot shade, click on that. And that gives me a good start point, which I can then move off from.
Totally.
Yeah. Nice. So,
yeah. I mean, if I use the white balance settings in here, I mean, it's just even quicker. I can just like get this thing done without really even thinking very much. That looks really good. Yeah. So super easy. This might be a good one for all soft. Let's see. Yeah, perfect. There, that, and then we'll just add some grain.
There was a question about the tones, maybe. Oh yeah, Michael's saying, can you mix the tone profiles, highlight soft, shadow hard? Is there any reason why you can't do that?
They'll just keep overriding each other.
Right.
So everything is actually already there. So there's all hard and all soft. So all hard just means that you're using both shadow hard and highlight hard at the same time.
Okay.
And all soft means you're using highlight soft and shadow soft at the same time.
Got it.
Yeah. It all comes from the scanner. So the original Japanese engineers that made the Fuji Frontier, which is like the best scanner of all time, that's where they went with it. They added those 6 settings, 7 settings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah. Yep.
So this Frontier scanner has like its own table and personal service in the office, I guess.
Yeah. You'll be like summarily executed if you spill soda on it or something.
Right, put a coffee mug on top of it or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfixable.
Yeah.
It's like I always think of it like Cuba, where they haven't had any new cars, since the 50s.
Right.
And they're basically like just keeping what they have going. And that's how it is with Fuji Frontier scanners. Is like you just want to keep it going. There's no way to fix it.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. But yeah. Oh.
We had a question earlier on where I can't remember who was asking, apologies to the listener, but the slide you had at the beginning, which had the steps you should take 1 to 5, if we could, you can, if you don't mind sharing them as well, you can send them to me and then I'll distribute it to the attendees as well, and just the description of each of the films as well was quite useful as well. I'm sure they can find that on your website, actually, the film description. But maybe the 1 to 6 step process was quite a handy reference to have.
Yeah. And honestly, it's not even 6 steps. This is for getting a light and airy edit in particular. So I added a few things.
Yeah.
But really the basic use of what we make is 3 steps.
Yeah.
which is apply the look, adjust exposure if you need to, and then get the white balance and tint set, and that's it. Yep.
And for Carlon's benefit, he was asking, what's the difference between all hard and all soft? That's relating to the both shadows and both highlights, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me find an example for you. Maybe the photo I'm on would work. Let me just get rid of this other image here. No. Okay, come on. There we go. All right. Let me get this. I'm going to make this just Fuji 400H neutral. And okay, so the differences are, again, they're not huge differences. These are all based on film and being very delicate with it. But here is all hard. And you can see that there's an increased contrast across the whole image. So the highlights got brighter, shadows got darker.
Right.
So I'll go back and all soft is completely the opposite. So now we're going, I'll roll off a bit. So now here's just normal and then all soft. Not a huge change, but definitely a change in both the shadows and the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go through each of these individual parts, highlight hard, highlight soft, shadow hard, and shadow soft, I'm just pulling apart those two first settings into two pieces. So this just makes highlights brighter. So if I go across, it's not really affecting shadows. Highlight soft makes the highlights softer without affecting anything else. And shadow hard makes the shadows harder. That's from the translation. It makes them darker. So you can see it in the corners a little bit.
Yeah.
And then shadow soft in the same area just brings out those shadows, more shadow detail.
Nice. A couple of people were asking, how do we buy these as well, which is always nice. So I can send a link also in the follow-up email. So everyone always gets a follow-up email. So I'll put a link in there which will take you to the Mastin store. But it is just www.mastinlabs.com, I assume. So it's pretty easy to find. And it just, the important thing, I guess, to remember is when you're buying the styles, make sure you buy them for Capture One and not the other application as well.
Not the L word.
Not the L word, exactly.
Yeah. Just go to at the top of the page. It says products.
Yeah.
And if you hover over that, it'll drop down, and it's kind of categorized best there, where it'll say Capture One at the top, and then under that, the other platform.
Oh yeah, I see. I'm just checking. I'm just checking the website now. So it's very self-explanatory. So easy to find.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good. 2 landscape-related questions. Sure. One, can you use them on landscape? And the second one was, if I wanted to do panoramics, could I potentially apply the Mastin Lab style to all the shots that I want to stitch together and then stitch them together in Photoshop?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
And then conversely, if you wanted, you could make your pano, export it as a TIFF or whatever, bring it back in, and then apply the style to it there. My little tip is that if you're not using the style on a raw image, you're going to need to take the contrast down by about half.
Okay.
You'll have to, however you want to get there. I think in this case you're going to have to do it in curves, or you could just go to the contrast slider and pull it down. Yeah, I think that would work just fine. So you just pull the contrast slider down quite a ways to compensate for working on a TIFF or a JPEG.
Okay.
You have to add a lot of contrast when you're working with the RAW, just to get a usable image.
Yeah, the RAW is super flat if we're talking raw. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the gray blob. Yeah.
Where was that question? Hang on, let me just pick that out. How are we doing for time? Well, we've got 5 or 10 minutes left, so we're trying to knock off as many questions as possible. Oh, when will the other Mastin Labs packs be available? Hungry for more? Please, the Ilford pack, Thomas says.
Oh, the Ilford pack. All right.
Yeah.
We're kind of just getting a read on what people want next, and then doing that. But we've got more coming out. So yeah, just stay tuned. We've got 2 now, and then we've got more on the way.
Nice. Glad to hear it. And do you have any recommendations aside from portrait and wedding photography for landscape and architectural? Can you pinpoint a film or a pack which you think makes sense for that?
Well, I mean, so these come from film, and really no film was ever really made in particular for, well, no, I'm going to take that back. Yes, slide films were made for landscape in particular. Velvia was. I would say Ektar is for sure. That's in the everyday pack. That's for sure, definitely really good for landscapes. But Fuji is as well. It depends on the look you want. So when people say landscape photography, I don't know exactly what that means. Do you want, to you, is landscape photography like super punchy and bright and vibrant? If that's the look you're going for, like you would see on a postcard, those are usually really punched up in color and contrast.
Right.
Then I would do Ektar.
Okay.
Anyway, that's my recommendation. Architecture, again, I don't know, maybe any of them would work fine. My only, not warning, but just something to consider is that if you're a product photographer, so you're like doing catalog work or something, it's funny. In my opinion, that's the only time it really makes sense just to do straight digital stuff.
Yeah.
Because any film, like any actual analog film, like a roll of film ever made, will change the colors of your oranges and blues and everything else to be a little bit different. And that's the style of the film. And if you're a product photographer, you're trying to get that exact match.
Yeah.
And that is like what digital was born to do. Like if digital was a film stock, the film stock would be called, I don't know, neutral.
Yeah. Facsimile. Yeah.
Yeah. It was digital was like created by engineers and film was created by artists.
Yeah, for sure.
That's in a nutshell. Like, do you want it to be exact, or do you want to have an artistic interpretation of it? So,
and I've used these on landscape, and I think it looks great. But it's again, it's sort of color grading in a way, really. So I think some landscape purists might be against that, but traditionally landscapes haven't been as color graded as other stuff. But I think it's a great way to get a different style and everything. So I've had lots of success using the everyday original on landscape. So I don't see any reason why you couldn't, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, as an example, like in the Mastin Labs community, I saw a lot of really beautiful work come in from people who'd been to like Santorini, like Greece, that area, Mediterranean areas, using Fuji 400H. I mean, it's like a perfect match for that environment. Like the whitewashed, like stucco buildings and the blue ocean and the blue roofs and all that. That looks super good with Fuji 400H. So it's a really tricky question. I mean, again, and then I wouldn't take it to Iceland.
Right.
Like it wouldn't fit Iceland. It fits Greece. It doesn't fit Iceland. So it's very hard to say like what is a landscape film or look. That's really tough.
Yeah. Maybe a Velvia or something like that. But then again, that wouldn't be my style, for example. I don't think I would have shot Velvia for landscape. So again, it's probably very personal, I would think, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, last couple of things, and then I think a couple of people are interested to see the histogram. I don't know why. It's I think maybe people are concerned about losing highlight detail and all that kind of stuff, but
yeah,
I think
let me turn on the
I'll
turn on the highlight. So I've got the highlight I've got the exposure warning turned on.
Yep.
And then you can see the histogram. You'll see that the styles protect highlights.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a tiny little few specks of red right there, but it's
Yeah.
not much. Okay, so some of these highlights are a little bit hot, but if I just did like all soft or used not 800Z, but like Fuji 400, Pro 400H neutral, like nothing is blowing out, even when you go to a high exposure level. Like I'll go really high and show you how it's protected. Like, I would never deliver a photo this overexposed.
Exactly.
Yeah, this bright ever. Yeah. But if that was your style, you wanted this super like ethereal look, do it.
Yeah.
Because nothing's blown out. I mean, barely, like a little bit of the tips of these white flowers, but I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that probably comes from some sort of, less quality preset, should we say, that might look good on one or two photos, and then you put them on another one and it looks terrible. So I understand the concern, but again, in my experience, I haven't found that applying these simulations suddenly means that my shadows look dreadful or my highlights look terrible and so on and so forth. So yeah. And there's also, don't forget, we have highlight recovery tools as well. So if you are losing highlights because of the lighting or whatever, then it's easy to bring that back too. Yeah.
Like this one's got quite a few areas that are going to pure white. Like if I was to take the that off, they're not like distracting or bad. These are just almost specular highlights. Like this is the actual sun right here, a nuclear ball of fire. So that's of course going to go to white. And then the back of her white dress is going to pure white. If I were to turn that on and just take the exposure all the way down, I mean, it's still pure white even down here.
Yeah.
So in general, unless the photo is like crazy, it will protect your highlights all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the same as film. Yeah. Anyway, good question.
Nice. Fantastic. Oh, that was Angelica's last question. How far can I go up with the exposure?
We always encourage people go farther than you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I noticed that from your excellent community, which, if anyone's listening, you have a great Facebook community, and everyone's super helpful. And nice that you can often upload pictures and people edit them for you and show you the results and give you advice and so on. So that's it's super nice to see that. And I've learned that don't be afraid to manhandle the exposure and other tools. It's not going to look terrible. It's actually my number one piece of advice. With people that are new to Mastin Labs and they're struggling with something. Yeah, I just tell them like play with the exposure, just bring it up more. The file can take it, and it usually unpacks the tones in the file and really gives you a nicer range of tone and color, and it just looks really good. All right, so 2 minutes worth of questions, and then that's it. So let's see. Where was that question? Once again, just to clarify, Henry, they're not camera specific. So someone was asking, do they work with phase 1 cameras? Yes, they do. And they work with Canon, Nikon, Sony, etc. Anything that's supported in Capture One, essentially. So if your camera is supported in Capture One, then Mastin Labs Styles will work with it. So there's no need to worry about your camera brand, as it were. No, not at all. What did John say? We love seeing the highlight alert in histogram. Being on a web connection and not having the image, it's often difficult to see where the peaking is taking place. Amazing control with the tone controls. Well done and thank you. There we go. So now, if people want to buy, I did put the link in, but I'll also put that in the follow-up email as well. So that'll come out with that. So everybody don't worry about that at all. And last question, I think, from Marcus. When you're shooting, I think this is a good question. and he mentions the Fuji pack, but I think we can make this cover all the packs. When you're shooting, do you have any considerations to how you shoot for exposure? So underexposed, overexposed, bang in the middle,
Normal.
or it doesn't matter? Just normal, yeah?
Normal.
Yeah.
Yep. Always normal. There's no secret sauce or magic trick to exposure.
Always
you could shoot the
plus
same image. No, you could take this image right here and shoot it a stop over and a stop under and neutral and apply it and edit it and make it look exactly the same.
Yeah.
No different.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yep.
And I assume Thomas must be a Fuji user, because does it matter what picture profile is selected before applying these styles? So I would say if you're working with a Fujifilm camera and you're shooting with a film sim, then you would want to disable that in Capture One, because then the film sim's going to be fighting against the preset. Yeah.
It used to when we first released it, and then I made some changes that override that.
Yeah.
So we don't have that problem anymore. So you don't even really have to worry about that. You shoot however you want.
Okay.
Yeah, shoot however you want, bring it in, and that will be overridden to get you the right look.
Ah, nice. So no consideration required. Yeah.
No.
Cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, unfortunately, okay, I'm going to put us both up on screen, Kirk, so make sure you're dressed. Cool. So thanks for joining us again today. It's always a pleasure seeing you going through and edit various different things, photos and different styles. Yeah. There's also a video on your YouTube channel, correct me if I'm wrong, where you actually go through a wedding edit using the styles as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
An entire wedding in an hour. I edit an entire wedding in an hour with this cool pack.
That's really nice. Yeah. So I think that's a good education also on workflow, because today you saw how the styles work, but that's only if you like part of the puzzle, I guess, isn't it? Because you also need the workflow, the sort of culling, selection, making all those decisions, editing and export and all that kind of stuff. So to do a wedding in an hour, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's like almost 600 photos, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty
edited.
Good.
Yeah.
So fantastic. All right. Well, I'll hit you up for some links, so to the Mastin community and to the store and all those kinds of things, and then we put them in the follow-up emails so people can really get into the ecosystem and everything else. So
awesome. Thank you.
One. All right. Well, thanks for joining us again today, and hope to see you in the future again. So take care, everyone, and thanks as well, Kurt.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
See you soon. Bye now.
Yep. Bye.